My parents forged my signature to take out a $180,000 mortgage on my inherited house. Turns out my brother was scamming them while they were scamming me. Now they're all going to federal prison. Hi everyone. Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. I, 27M, don't even know where to start. My hands are literally shaking as I type this. I need to give you the full background so you understand how insane this situation is. 3 years ago, my grandmother passed away. She was my dad's mother, but she and I had a special bond. I spent every summer with her growing up, helped her with groceries and doctor's appointments when I got older, and was basically her primary caregiver in her final years while my parents and brother were too busy. When she died, she left me her house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was paid off and in good condition. My parents were furious. They expected the house to go to my dad as the only child. When the will was read and I was named the sole beneficiary, my mother actually stood up and accused me of manipulating Grandma. My brother Matthew, 25M, just sat there smirking, probably already calculating what his share would have been worth. Despite their anger, I tried to maintain a relationship. I'd invite them over for dinner, help with their yard work, normal family stuff. They'd make passive-aggressive comments about people who take advantage of the elderly, but I ignored it. I thought time would heal the wound. I was wrong. Yesterday, I got home from work to find a certified letter. Foreclosure notice. My heart stopped. The house has been paid off for 15 years. There shouldn't be any foreclosure. I immediately called the mortgage company listed on the notice, thinking it was some kind of scam or mistake. The customer service representative pulled up my account and cheerfully informed me about the second mortgage taken out 8 months ago. $180,000. Monthly payment of $1,875. Currently 5 months behind with late fees and penalties, bringing the total owed to just over $15,000. I told her that was impossible. I never took out any mortgage. I've never even been to their offices. She said she was looking at signed documents, notarized and everything. She mentioned that my parents had been listed as witnesses on some of the paperwork. I drove straight to their office. It was 4:30, almost closing time, but I begged them to let me see the documents. When they pulled the file, I nearly vomited. There was my signature on every page. Except it wasn't my signature. Someone had practiced, gotten close, but I could see the differences. The way they wrote my G was wrong. The slant was off. My real signature has a distinctive loop that was missing. The loan officer, an older woman named Linda, remembered the transaction. She said I had seemed nervous, that my parents did most of the talking, explaining that I was using the money for investment opportunities. She remembered my father joking about how I was finally being smart with Grandma's gift. When I told her I'd never been in her office before, her face went white. I drove straight to my parents' house. They were having dinner like it was any normal Tuesday. When I showed them the foreclosure notice, my dad didn't even look surprised. My mother put down her fork and said, "Well, I suppose it's time we had a talk." They proceeded to explain, calmly, rationally, like they were telling me about a minor fender bender, that they had taken out the mortgage to help Matthew start his business. A cryptocurrency trading platform that was going to revolutionize digital finance. They said it was a family investment, that we'd all benefit when Matthew struck it rich. When I asked how they could forge my signature, my mother actually looked offended. "We're your parents," she said. "We changed your diapers. We know your signature better than you do." I told them they'd committed fraud, identity theft, forgery. That I could have them arrested. That's when their demeanor changed. My father stood up, pointed his finger at me, and said if I went to the police, they'd tell everyone, family, friends, my employer, that I'd been emotionally and financially abusing them since Grandma died. That I held the house over their heads, refused to help with their bills, and forced them to take desperate measures. My mother started crying on cue, saying she never thought her own son would threaten to have her arrested. "After everything we've done for you," she wailed. "We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years, and this is how you repay us?" Then came the kicker. They said the solution was simple. Sign the house over to Matthew. He'd take over the mortgage, use the house as collateral for business loans, and once his company took off, he'd pay me back my share. When I laughed at the absurdity, they acted like I was the unreasonable one. Matthew walked in during this conversation. I suspect he'd been listening from the other room. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Come on, Grayson. Don't be selfish. This is for the family. Grandma would want us to work together. The audacity of invoking my grandmother's name when they'd just stolen the house she left me. I had to leave before I did something I'd regret. I'm sitting in my car now in a McDonald's parking lot. I've called 3 lawyers. 2 said they don't handle family disputes. The third said he'd need a $5,000 retainer to start. I have maybe $3,000 in savings. What do I do? Is this really fraud if they're my parents? The house is all I have. I make $52,000 a year. I can't afford rent somewhere else and a mortgage payment on a house I can't even live in. Can they really claim elder abuse? They're only in their 50s and in perfect health. I've never asked them for money, never threatened them, never even raised my voice until today. Please help me. I feel like I'm drowning and they're standing on the shore holding the life preserver. Update 1, 3 days later. First, thank you to everyone who responded. Your advice gave me the courage to take action, though things have escalated beyond my worst nightmares. I took your advice and filed a police report for identity theft and fraud. The officer who took my report, Officer Martinez, seemed sympathetic. He said family fraud cases are more common than people think but warned me they're complicated to prosecute. He took copies of all the forged documents and said a detective would be in touch. Within 24 hours, my parents made good on their threat. They went to the police station and filed their own report, claiming elder abuse. But they didn't just make vague accusations, they came prepared with evidence. The detective assigned to my case, Detective Chen, called me in to discuss the competing allegations. My parents had provided 1. Dozens of text messages, apparently from my phone number, demanding money, calling them horrible names, and threatening to ban them from their house unless they paid me rent to visit. 2. Bank statements showing regular $500 withdrawals every month that they claim I forced them to make by threatening to evict them from family gatherings. 3. Photos of bruises on my mother's arms and legs that she says I caused during a recent argument. 4. A handwritten diary my mother has supposedly been keeping for 2 years documenting my escalating abuse. 5. Witness statements from 3 neighbors claiming they've heard me screaming at my parents during visits. The texts were the most damaging. They were vile, calling my mother names I'd never use, demanding money for letting them see their future grandchildren, threatening to sell Grandma's house just to spite them. Detective Chen showed them to me, and I nearly threw up. They were from my number, but I never sent them. My lawyer, yes, I found one who'd take a payment plan, immediately recognized what happened. Spoofing apps, she said. $20 and anyone can make texts appear to come from any number. But proving that is another matter. Here's where my parents were clever. They've been setting this up for months. The bank withdrawals? They match dates when I was supposedly at their house demanding money. The bruises? The photos are dated across several weeks. The diary? Written in different inks, different dates, showing a progression of abuse. The neighbors' statements hurt the most. These are people who've known me since I was in diapers. Mrs. Patterson used to babysit me. Mr. Yamamoto taught me to ride a bike. But my parents have been telling them stories for months about how I've changed, how greedy I've become, how I treat them terribly. They primed these witnesses. My lawyer says the good news is that the evidence is almost too perfect. Real abuse is messy, she explained. This is orchestrated. But we need to prove that, and it takes time. Meanwhile, the mortgage situation gets worse daily. The foreclosure is proceeding. I've tried negotiating with the mortgage company, explaining the fraud, but they say until there's a legal determination, I'm responsible for the debt. They want $15,000 to stop the foreclosure process, then regular payments going forward. I've applied for personal loans, tried to refinance, even looked into a GoFundMe, too humiliating. My credit score has plummeted from 740 to 520 because of the missed payments. No legitimate lender will touch me. Matthew has been texting me non-stop. Not apologizing. No, he's trying to convince me this is an opportunity. His messages are surreal. Think bigger, bro. Once Cryptosphere launches, we'll be millionaires. Stop being so attached to a building. It's just walls and a roof. Grandma would want her grandsons to work together. I'll cut you in for 20% if you stop making this difficult. 20% of my own house. The generosity is overwhelming. I haven't been sleeping. I've lost 12 pounds in 3 days. I called in sick to work because I can't focus. My boss is understanding for now, but how long before this affects my job? My parents are telling everyone their version of events. I'm getting messages from cousins, aunts, family friends, all ranging from disappointed to disgusted. My favorite uncle, who taught me to fish, sent a text that just said, I never thought you'd turn out like this. The isolation is the worst part. I feel like I'm screaming into the void while my parents calmly destroy my life with spreadsheets and forged documents. Tomorrow, I meet with the prosecutor about the potential elder abuse charges. My lawyer will be there, but she's warned me to prepare for the possibility of being arrested. My parents are pushing for criminal charges, not just a restraining order. How did I get here? How did the people who raised me become capable of this? I keep looking at family photos, trying to pinpoint when they decided I was expendable. Update 2 weeks later. The last 2 weeks have been a masterclass in how deep betrayal can run. I'm updating from a friend's couch because I can no longer enter my own home. The meeting with the prosecutor went better than expected. Ada Phelps seemed skeptical of my parents' claims from the start. The text messages were too convenient, too perfectly timed. She asked my parents to provide their phones for forensic analysis to verify the messages were real. They refused, claiming privacy concerns. That raised red flags. But here's what my parents didn't count on: technology leaves traces. My lawyer hired a digital forensics expert, another $3,000 I don't have. He found 1. The spoofing app purchase on my father's credit card from 6 months ago. 2. Metadata showing the diary was written on a computer and printed, not handwritten, over 2 years. 3. Security footage from my workplace proving I was at work during several alleged abuse incidents. The elder abuse charges were dropped, but the damage was done. My reputation is shattered. My employer suggested I take unpaid leave while things get sorted out. Translation: You're too much drama for the office. The mortgage situation has deteriorated beyond salvage. While fighting the criminal charges, I couldn't fight the foreclosure. The house is scheduled for auction in 6 weeks. The mortgage company doesn't care about the fraud, they want their money. My lawyer says we can sue them later for improper verification procedures, but that's like promising dinner to a starving man next year. Here's where it gets surreal. Matthew has moved into my house. I drove by last week and saw his Tesla in the driveway. The Tesla he bought with my grandmother's money, his business investment. When I knocked, he answered wearing my grandmother's apron, the one with sunflowers that she wore every Sunday making her famous pot roast. "You're trespassing," he said, not even pretending to be civil anymore. "It's still my house," I replied. "Not for long. Mom and Dad said I should maintain the property during the transition. Can't have it falling apart before the auction." I started recording on my phone. "Did you know they forged my signature?" His mask slipped for just a second. "You need to leave." "Did you know, Matthew? Sometimes you have to do what's best for the family. You hoarding grandma's house while the rest of us struggle isn't right." "Struggle? You drive a $90,000 car. Leased. With business funds. You wouldn't understand entrepreneurship. What happened to the $180,000? And here, he couldn't help himself. Pride overtook caution. Turned it into $310,000, actually. While you were sitting on a dead woman's house, I was making moves. Cryptosphere is going to change everything." "There is no cryptosphere, is there?" He laughed. "Of course there is. I've got the LLC papers and everything. Just because the development is delayed doesn't mean it's not real. Once I secure the house as collateral, real investors will take me seriously." I kept recording, kept him talking. He bragged about his trading gains, how he'd quintupled some investments, how the house was just the beginning. He'd use it to leverage more loans, more investments. In 5 years, he'd buy me out for fair market value, family discount, of course. When I finally left, I sat in my car and cried. Not just tears, body-shaking sobs. The brother I'd shared a room with for 15 years, who I'd protected from bullies, who I'd lent my car to for his prom, he'd become a stranger wearing my memories like a costume. The extended family situation is equally devastating. My parents have been thorough in their character assassination. They've told everyone I charged them rent to visit the house. Refused to help with their medical bills. They have excellent insurance. Threatened to put them in a nursing home. Stole money from grandma before she died, projection much. My Aunt Sarah, my dad's sister, called me sobbing. Said she couldn't believe what I'd become. When I tried to explain, she cut me off. "Your mother showed me the texts. The horrible things you said. How could you?" I've received similar calls from dozens of relatives. Each one breaks me a little more. These aren't just family members. They're my history, my identity, my connection to grandma. And they all believe I'm a monster. Work officially fired me yesterday. They cited inability to maintain consistent attendance, but we all know it's because my mother called HR claiming I was dangerous. She didn't make specific threats, she's too smart for that. Just expressed concern for the safety of his co-workers given his recent violent behavior toward his family. So now I'm unemployed, soon to be homeless, and completely isolated. The friend whose couch I'm sleeping on has asked me to find somewhere else by month's end. He's getting married next year and can't have drama affecting his relationship. I understand, but it still hurts. My lawyer remains optimistic about the civil suit, but optimism doesn't pay rent or buy food. I've sold everything valuable, my gaming system, my good watch, my grandmother's jewelry, that hurt the most. I'm applying for jobs, but explaining why you were fired during a fraud investigation isn't easy. The only thing keeping me sane is documenting everything. Every text, every email, every interaction. My lawyer says we're building a strong case, but strong cases take time, and time is a luxury I can't afford. Next week, we depose my parents for the civil suit. My lawyer says that's when things will get interesting. People can lie to family and police, but lying under oath is different. We'll see if their story holds up when facing perjury charges. I know some of you think I should just walk away, start over somewhere else. But this isn't just about a house anymore. It's about truth. It's about not letting them rewrite history. It's about honoring my grandmother's memory and her wishes. They wanted me to roll over and give them everything. Instead, I'm fighting back with everything I have left. Which, admittedly, isn't much. But it's enough. Update 3, 6 weeks later. This update has taken me weeks to write because I couldn't find the words to describe what happened. Even now, I'm not sure I can do it justice. The depositions were illuminating. My mother went first. Under oath, with a court reporter recording everything, she began strong. Repeated all her claims about abuse, produced her evidence, cried on cue. But my lawyer, Jennifer, is a pit bull in designer heels. Jennifer started with simple questions. When exactly did the abuse start? My mother said after Grandma died. Jennifer pulled out social media posts, my mother's own Facebook, praising me for taking such good care of the house, thanking me for hosting Christmas, calling me the best son a mother could ask for. All dated after Grandma's death. Were you lying then or are you lying now? Jennifer asked. My mother stammered about being afraid and putting on a brave face. Then came the texts. Jennifer had our forensics expert walk through exactly how spoofing apps work. She showed the credit card receipt. My mother claimed my father must have bought it for research, because he'd been getting strange texts too. No evidence of that, of course. The bruises were next. Jennifer had enlarged photos showing the pattern, perfectly circular, evenly spaced. She'd consulted with a medical expert who confirmed they were consistent with someone pressing a rounded object against their skin, not grab marks or impact bruises. The tennis ball video from the neighbor's doorbell camera was the killing blow. My mother broke down, not fake tears this time. Real panic. She kept looking at my father's lawyer for help, but there was none coming. My father's deposition was worse. He's always been the smart one, the planner. But Jennifer had done her homework. She'd pulled property records showing he'd been researching home equity loans for 2 years. She had emails between him and Matthew discussing the inheritance situation. She had a paper trail of him practicing my signature. He'd used a rewards card at Office Depot, and they'd pulled the security footage of him buying tracing paper. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. My grandmother's estate lawyer had kept meticulous records, including a voicemail from my father the day after the will reading. In it, he called me a manipulative little bastard, and said he'd fix the situation one way or another. But the real shock came during Matthew's deposition. He showed up in a new suit, fresh haircut, cocky as ever. Brought his own lawyer, not the family's lawyer, his own. That should have been our first clue something was different. Jennifer started with basic questions about the business. Matthew produced documents, incorporation papers, development timelines, even some rudimentary code. Cryptosphere was real, or at least real enough on paper. Then she asked about the money. What money? Matthew asked. The $180,000 from the fraudulent mortgage. I never received any money from a mortgage. The room went silent. Even his lawyer looked surprised. Jennifer pulled out bank records showing the money going into an account with Matthew's name on it. Matthew examined them carefully. That's not my account, he said. That's an account my parents opened. They have access to it. I've never touched that money. His own lawyer tried to silence him, but Matthew was on a roll. He pulled out his phone, showed his actual bank statements. He had about $3,000 to his name. The Tesla, leased by my parents, they just let him drive it. The business, they'd convinced him to put it in their names, for tax purposes. Are you saying your parents control everything? Jennifer asked. They said it was better this way. That I wasn't ready. That after we got Grayson's house sorted out, they'd transfer everything to me. The truth was dawning on him in real time. My parents hadn't just scammed me. They'd scammed both of us. They'd used Matthew as a prop in their con, let him think he was part of the plan while keeping him on a leash. Where's the money now? Jennifer asked. Matthew looked at his parents' lawyer, who was frantically texting. I don't know. We took a break. When we returned, Matthew had fired his parents' lawyer and hired his own representation. He wanted to make a deal. Over the next 3 hours, Matthew laid out everything. The plan had started years ago, when Grandma first got sick. My parents were drowning in debt, bad investments, living beyond their means, a gambling problem my father had hidden. They'd assumed they'd inherit the house, sell it, and fix everything. When I inherited instead, they were desperate. The fraud started small, a credit card here, a small loan there. But it wasn't enough. The house was their golden goose, and I was sitting on it. Matthew thought he was getting a business funded. In reality, my parents had taken the money and used it to pay off their most pressing debts, gamble on some sure-thing investments, and maintain their lifestyle. Of the $180,000, maybe $30,000 went to Matthew's business. The rest was gone, casino receipts, luxury purchases, a cruise they took while I was fighting elder abuse charges. The session ended with Matthew offering to testify against our parents in exchange for immunity from prosecution. The federal prosecutor, who'd been monitoring the civil case, was suddenly very interested. That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, 1. My parents were arrested on federal wire fraud charges. The mortgage crossed state lines, making it a federal crime. 2. Their assets were frozen. The house, the cars, the bank accounts, all of it. 3. Matthew wore a wire to a meeting with them. They admitted everything, thinking he was still on their side. They actually laughed about making me homeless. 4. The mortgage company, facing a lawsuit for their negligent verification procedures, agreed to a settlement. They're writing off the fraudulent loan and clearing the foreclosure. 5. I got the house back. It's mine, free and clear, just like Grandma intended. But here's the thing about winning. It doesn't erase the losses. I'm still unemployed. My reputation is still damaged. Most of my family still won't talk to me. The cousins who grew up calling me their big brother, the aunts who taught me to cook, the uncles who took me fishing, they're gone. Some believe my parents' lies. Others are too embarrassed to reach out. Matthew and I aren't brothers anymore. We're not enemies. We're nothing. He testified, told the truth, even apologized. But how do you rebuild after something like this? He let them use my house as bait for his dreams while I was drowning. That he was also a victim doesn't erase that. My parents are facing 20 years in federal prison. Their lawyer wants me to write a letter asking for leniency. Says they're old, that prison would kill them, that I should show mercy. I think about that sometimes. About mercy. About forgiveness. About what Grandma would want. But then I remember the nights I couldn't sleep, terrified I'd be arrested for crimes I didn't commit. I remember selling her jewelry to pay legal fees. I remember my mother's fake tears as she accused me of abuse. I remember my father practicing my signature like he was writing a grocery list. I remember Matthew wearing Grandma's apron in my house, telling me I was trespassing. So no mercy. No forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Final update, 3 months later. I wasn't going to update again, but something happened that I need to share. Call it closure, call it karma, call it whatever you want. The federal trial was set for next month. My parents were out on bail, wearing ankle monitors, assets frozen. They'd moved in with my mother's sister, who was one of the few family members still speaking to them. Last week, I got a call from the federal prosecutor. They'd arrested Matthew again. Remember how he'd made a deal? Testified against our parents? Well, the forensic accountants kept digging into his finances, and they found something interesting. That $30,000 that went to his business? He'd told the truth about that. What he hadn't mentioned was the side trading account he'd set up. While my parents thought he was building cryptosphere, he was day trading with their money. And he was good at it. Turned that $30,000 into nearly $400,000. But here's where greed made him stupid. He used those profits to buy my house at the auction. The auction had happened while all the legal proceedings were ongoing. I was devastated watching my house get sold, but my lawyer assured me we'd get it back eventually through the courts. The winning bid came from a shell company called MG Investments. $50,000 over market value. Cash purchase. MG Investments. Matthew Grayson Investments. He'd incorporated it the day before the auction, thinking he was clever. Used a lawyer he found online, paid in cryptocurrency, thought he'd covered his tracks. But federal investigators aren't amateurs. They traced the crypto back to his hidden trading account. They found the incorporation documents. They connected the dots. Matthew's plan was elegant in its selfishness. Let our parents take the fall for the fraud, get immunity for testifying, then swoop in and buy the house with the profits from their crime. He'd get the house, the money, and freedom while everyone else burned. But he made one fatal error. The money he used. It was proceeds from wire fraud. Using criminal proceeds to purchase property is money laundering. Using it to buy the very property that was the subject of the fraud? That's not just criminal, it's stupid. The feds revoked his immunity deal and charged him with money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Turns out, they found emails showing he knew about the forgery from the beginning. He'd helped plan it, thinking he was getting a business funded. When he realized our parents were scamming him too, he didn't go to the authorities. He started scamming them right back. My family, ladies and gentlemen. 3 con artists trying to out-con each other, with me as the mark. The best part? Because the house was purchased with criminal proceeds, it was subject to asset forfeiture. The feds seized it from Matthew's shell company. And since I was the original victim of the fraud, I petitioned to have it returned. Last Tuesday, I got the keys back. I spent the first night sleeping on the floor of Grandma's old room. No furniture. Matthew had sold or trashed most of it. Just me, a sleeping bag, and the overwhelming feeling of completion. The house is mine. Free and clear. No mortgage, no liens, no family members trying to steal it. The trials are moving forward. My parents are looking at 20 years. Matthew, because he violated an immunity agreement and committed additional crimes, is looking at 30. Their lawyers have stopped asking me for character letters. The family situation remains broken. Some relatives have reached out, apologizing for believing the lies. I've responded politely but haven't resumed relationships. Trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild easily. Maybe someday. Maybe not. I've started a new job, nothing fancy, but honest work. My credit is slowly recovering. I'm in therapy, working through the betrayal trauma. Some days are harder than others. Christmas was rough. Grandma always made such a big deal about having everyone together. This year, it was just me and a frozen pizza. But I'm free. I'm in my house. I survived. To everyone who followed this story, who offered advice and support, thank you. You kept me sane when my world was insane. To anyone dealing with family trying to steal from you, document everything. Get lawyers involved immediately. Don't let guilt or family loyalty stop you from protecting yourself. The people who truly love you won't try to destroy you for money. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't elaborate. Sometimes it's just refusing to be a victim, standing your ground, and letting their own greed destroy them. They wanted my house. They got federal prison instead. Grandma would be proud. Edit. Since many asked, I'm remodeling the house slowly, room by room. Starting with the kitchen. Grandma loved to cook, and I'm learning. Turns out stress-induced weight loss isn't a healthy diet plan. Who knew? Edit 2. For those wondering about forgiveness, I'm working on it. Not for them but for me. Carrying anger is exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward. Edit 3. The forensics accountant who uncovered Matthew's hidden accounts? Jennifer recommended him. Cost me $5,000 I didn't have at the time. Best investment I ever made. Sometimes you have to spend money to get justice. Final thought. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: when someone shows you who they are, believe them. My parents showed me who they were the day they contested Grandma's will. I just wasn't ready to see it.